During a Q&A session at the June virtual UX conference, Jakob Nielsen shared his thoughts on what he believes to be the most important long-term challenge for the UX profession. Here's what he had to say.
Redefining education is really a really major UX challenge. And there's, I would say, three different ways in which this is an interesting problem. And so the first one is actually very internally focused, which is UX education, because it's really terrible, to be honest, the university level education. First of all, most universities don't even have any degrees or programs in our field. So you've got to like study something else and then kind of try to change, which is a waste of time. But even when people study it, they still don't really learn it well enough. And there's a lot of waste of time again there. I could tell you that every time we get interns, we got to like teach them how to do user testing, because really how to facilitate a user, it's not something they learn at school. And this is, I mean, we hire our interns from places like Peking University, Tsinghua, India Institute of Technology. I mean, these are places I would have a hard time getting into. I've had to study hard to pass the entrance exams to those places. And yet, when we get the students, we got to teach them. That needs to really improve UX education. But more broadly speaking, the other two that are, of course, more important for society at large. And that's, first of all kind of the kind of elementary or high school type of that level of education, where I'm sure there will be there might be a remote path that continues in the long run. In the short run, for sure, the way it's done now, we know that the kids aren't really learning that much right now. So that needs to change. But just generally speaking, we also need to improve and take advantage of the various technologies, because that has not really been done properly until now. It's very primitive use of computers in education. And then when you go to higher education, that's when I think there can be really major changes that will be needed. Because when you think about the future, one of the things I think is very likely to happen is accelerating change. So things will change more and more. And that means that you cannot have this model where people go to college and they get like pumped up with some knowledge for 4 years while they're in this sort of age from like 18 to 22 or something like that. Well, 18 to 22 is interesting because that's like exactly the age of like peak fluid intelligence, because 20 years is like when people on average has the highest fluid intelligence, which is the ability to kind of make sense of new things. And so it's an optimal period for absorbing information, for sure, that age. And that's probably why in more or less all societies, that's the age to go to university. It doesn't really work for older people. You don't have time when you are, as in my age or any other age, to really go away for years. And the way it's done, I mean, the technology, if you want to call it, hasn't really changed since the age of Socrates, in the ancient Greece. And that's fine if all, the professors and teachers were as pedagogical as Socrates, and if all the students were as smart as Plato, then that method works fine, right? But that's not the case. Most professors are terrible teachers, and most students are, not super smart anymore, because a very broad percentage of the population is going to universities. So we just need other ways of teaching, but I think in particular ways of helping people through a lifelong learning, really, I guess, but also so as they get older, have the ability to learn new things that they need for the changing society. Because, I mean, the alternative is that, new things come up, the old things people know how to do is no longer needed, so bang, you're fired. Well, so then what everybody says, well, you're just like retrain and get another job. And so in terms of the economy, that works fine, because there will be new jobs created. That's why the change happens, that new things come up. And I don't know what the new thing will be in 10 years. So it'll be something, so there'll be some jobs. But the problem is that the people who long ago learned stuff that's no longer needed, they're not going to know the new thing. And so how do they get to know the new thing? That's the big question, right? And so that's where we need to really find better ways of doing that. And that, I would say, that has always been a problem. But I do think that in the future, because of that accelerating change, it's going to be a much more deep felt problem. And if we want to avoid, like mass unemployment, we've got to actually allow people to adapt to new changes and new skills. And that cannot be done in any efficient manner with the old-fashioned methodology that's optimized for very young people from 18 to 22 who have these kind of malleable brains.